And hello again from WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. I'm Josh Manning, Deputy Managing Editor for the Western Journal. Joining me today in the studio, intern Grant. He won't always be an intern, though. He has been extended a job offer and will soon be joining the ranks.
Looking forward to it.
Employed by the Western Journal. And joining us from somewhere across the fruited plains is Cameron Arcand, our correspondent at large. I'm not sure where he is or what he's doing right now, but Cameron's with us as well. Thank you for joining us on this last WJ Live of the week. We appreciate you sticking with us this week, hanging with us, and deciding to spend just a few minutes of your time on Friday with us today. We've got good stuff for you. We're going to be talking about the Olympics, stuff happening there. We're going to be talking with you about the Obama administration's decision regarding Cuban refugees. And we're also going to be talking with you about something interesting that happened around the office here at the Western Journal. I have a very funny story for you guys. It involves a lie about Russian disinformation, a Russian oligarch, and all sorts of interesting things. But first off, Grant, take it away.
Yes, so we've talked a lot about the Olympics. Obviously, that's a big story that's going on. And unfortunately, the bigger story than the Olympics at large has been the inability of many of the teams to really respect America and to represent them the way that probably most Americans would want them to be represented. We've seen protests. We've seen women's soccer players kneeling. We've seen a gymnast sneak a Black Lives Matter statement into her routine. And so just things like that really are not what we want to be represented as Americans, and not the picture that we really want to put out on the world stage. I will mention I was watching the women's soccer game this morning, just to stay informed about what's happening, and they didn't look very good. They squeaked it out in penalties, but it was a close game. So I will say they are
U.S. women's soccer,
the women's soccer team. Yes. So I think
they are they're world class at kneeling, though.
So good,
especially, and I don't think we should take that away from them.
They're world class at kneeling right before the game.
Right before the game.
When they should be preparing to play, a soccer game.
Instead of that, they are talking about how horrible the United States is. The country that sent them to Tokyo.
Right.
To represent itself.
The country that made it possible for them to be able to go there.
If they really wanted to make a statement, they'd say, "No, I'm sorry. I can't represent the United States. I'm sorry."
I mean, I wouldn't agree with it, but I would respect that more.
A lot more than going out there trashing the country, taking all of the bounty that comes from the United States, going out there and trashing it and getting a medal.
Exactly.
Well, we'll see about that.
But unfortunately, they are not the only team that has been kind of akin to these woke protests that we've seen at the Olympics. Another team, not so much at the Olympics, but just they've been vocal about, honestly, their hatred for America since before the Olympics began, and that is the Team USA men's basketball team. Obviously, the U.S. has by far the most basketball talent of any of the teams. Most teams have, one or two NBA guys. The U.S. has a roster full of NBA players who are super talented, and they should honestly win gold every year. Unfortunately, they're struggling this year. Well, I don't know if it's unfortunate after what I'm about to tell you, but they're struggling this year. And we put out a couple pieces about this yesterday, questioning whether those struggles have to do with the fact that they don't like America. They've embraced the anti-America Black Lives Matter movement. And it seems that they're more concerned about winning an NBA championship than they are about a gold medal, which is not the way it used to be. And it's not the way it is in other countries. One team that's doing really well in the Olympics and the men's basketball tournament is Slovenia. They have a superstar, Luka Doncic.
Those Slovenians,
yes. Probably not the team that you
watch out for the Slovenians.
You would have been betting on at the beginning of the tournament, but they're actually playing very well. They have a star, Luka Doncic, the guard from the Dallas Mavericks. And he was asked before the Olympics whether it would be more important for him to win an NBA championship or to win a gold medal. And he had an interesting response. I think we have a video here of that.
What would mean more to you, a gold medal with the Team Slovenia or NBA championship with the man?
I would say gold medal with Slovenia. You play for your country, and that's something that really. But I wouldn't mind both.
And that's a fair answer. I mean, of course you want to win an NBA championship, but the fact that he would say a gold medal, I'm playing for my country, is what's important to me. And he's been doing great. He dropped 48 points in his opener, Slovenia's opener. They've been playing really well, and you can see that they care about playing for their country. On the other hand, we have the United States team, who is coached by Greg Popovich, the San Antonio Spurs coach, who is pretty infamous for his anti-Donald Trump takes. And we have a statement from him here that he made in 2018, I believe, and it says, quote, "The flag is irrelevant. It's just a symbol that people glom onto for political reasons, just like Dick Cheney back in the Iraq War." That's how he feels. I'm not sure what the Dick Cheney reference means, but it seems
Cheney
pretty.
is living in that film.
I don't know why that is the first thing that came to mind, but it's obvious that he doesn't like the flag. He also had made a comment in 2019 that he said America is a racist country. There's really no missing context. That's just what he said. And so clearly he doesn't love America. And I'm just wondering what you guys think about whether this kind of anti-America sentiment is having an effect on the way the team plays.
Cameron, you're a well-known Olympic expert and former doping enthusiast. Tell us what you think about it. I'm just kidding, folks. Cameron's never doped in his life, I don't think.
You know, I think this is the second time you've accused me of doing drugs on this program.
It's all right. It's actually in the minority compared to the number of times I've accused other people who work here.
But I would say this first. I mean, I think a lot of these players, they might be a bit distracted. You know, you open up a game with a political statement. That might be a distraction. That might be what's on your mind throughout the rest of the game. I can't speak for these athletes, but what I will say, though, is Team USA might be kind of up to their own thing. But if I am a producer, if I'm a television producer for the Olympics right now, I'm probably not liking this too much because I'm thinking about the money. I'm thinking about all the people that normally would be watching the Olympics aren't going on their new streaming platforms, paying the money to go and watch it. The ratings are down, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that even something that was supposed to unite the country, a lot of these players have made it political. They did it to themselves, and now the media side of it is being impacted quite a bit too. So I would say that if NBC and Team USA isn't cashing in on this Olympic Games as much as they were in previous years, they need to reflect on that and maybe understand, hey, not everything needs to be politicized like this. Patriotism, red, white, and blue, that doesn't have it. We don't need to make that have a negative connotation. And most importantly, not everything needs to be a political statement. I think there's this misconception where if you have a platform now, if you have a non-political platform, you need to somehow use that for some form of social justice. We saw it last summer where if you weren't posting your infographic on whatever, I was seeing comments on the comment section of country singers, for God's sakes, country singers, of people being like, why aren't you speaking out about what's going on right now? It's because they're a country singer. They're not a politician. They're not making policy. They're not going to go and rave about the criminal justice system. I think a lot of these athletes, they're kneeling, they're taking these stances because they feel obligated to, because they think if they don't, they're not going to get their good person points. So I've really just been kind of watching the swimming rounds. I think a lot of those guys over there, they like America. They like representing our country. I don't know about all of them, but those are the sports I've been watching. And it'll be interesting to see how this shakes out for them ratings wise.
Yeah, that's interesting. At some point, you do have to kind of acknowledge, all right, these are athletes. These are not political thinkers. They're not political figures. They're as attracted to peer pressure and kind of the latest thing as anybody else. Maybe there is some amount of this that's just, to borrow a word from Popovich, maybe they're just glomming on some of them. And I mean, in what world do we look to athletes to kind of articulate our political ideas. But the sad thing is that it's not a complex political idea to say I love my country and I support it. That's not a complicated idea. That's an easy thing. And until the last, really, since the 60s or so, it was pretty common too. It was very odd if you were not interested in defending your country and supporting your country. But then it became in vogue with the Vietnam War and the anti-war movement here in America and on the left and amongst liberals. It was very, very popular to criticize the country and John Kerry. I mean, he was the Democrat candidate for president in the past. He threw his Vietnam medals over the White House fence. It was very common to trash your country, and that became in vogue. But it's an abnormal thing. A friend of mine used to say that leftism is essentially abnormal. And it's an abnormal thing to not support your country. And hey, if you don't support your country, why the heck are you staying there? There are lots of other places that don't need fences to keep people out. Anyway, all right, that's good. Good discussion. Now, I want to talk with you folks I want to share a little inside baseball with you folks who are watching right now. And also, I want to say hi to Troy, my brother-in-law. I did not know Troy was a regular watcher of our show, viewer of our show, but he is. Troy, thank you for tuning in.
That's a good shout out. I mean, that'll keep him coming back.
Yeah. Well, according to the information I've gotten from my wife on Troy, we may be just about the only thing he watches. He's canceled a lot of his subscriptions because he thinks it's fake news. And man, who can blame a fellow for that?
Yeah, I mean, you can't blame him.
Speaking of fake news, an interesting thing happened to us over the last 10 days or so that involves the charge of fake news. Here's what happened. If you hang out at westernjournal.com, you may be used to being able to comment on our articles. Down at the bottom of the article, you could type in your comments. They would show up. People would argue. People would make friends. Romance would bloom. There was all sorts of things that would happen. If you tried to do that in the last week or so, you weren't able to. We've had people emailing us for days saying, what in the heck? I'm trying to comment and I can't. I used to be able to comment. What's wrong with you people taking away my First Amendment right? Well, we have not tried to take away your First Amendment rights. What has happened is that the company we use to provide that commenting function, they dropped us. And they did it the right way without telling us, like the cowards that they are. So we started getting emails about this. We checked in with the company. It used to be called Spot.im. It's now called
Open Web.
Open Web. It's now called Open Web because they're unbelievably creative going from Spot.im to Open
They're
Web.
super open, which is why they allow
they're super open.
all
Ironically, they changed to Open Web and then they closed down on us. Anyway, Open Web got back to us. We said, what the heck's going on? They said, as part of our ongoing quality assurance efforts across our network, Open Web is terminating our platform services for the Western Journal. This they told the Western Journal via email. This decision was made as Western Journal appeared on at least one of the validated third-party indexes of false news and conspiracy websites that we use to determine publisher quality. So, if you follow the breadcrumbs there and you look at the third-party group that knocked us, that is a place called the Global Disinformation Index. And they lumped us in with 4 other sites that they say they identified 5 sites which currently carry the highest amount of election-related disinformation. These sites are, I'm still quoting, 3 U.S.-based sites, Breitbart, the Western Journal, and the Epoch Times, and 2 Russian-based sites, the Kremlin-backed RT.com and SputnikNews.com. So, we started digging around, because that's what journalists do. And guess what we found out, folks? The company that dropped us because we were lumped in with 2 Russian government news sites. Oh, this is delicious. Wait for it. Wait for it. This is better than Grandma's casserole on Sunday afternoon. The company is funded by a Russian oligarch. Yes, that's right. A Russian oligarch funds the company that dropped us for a false association with Russian fake news. It doesn't get any better than that. Let me tell you about this fella. Russian billionaire Roman Abramovich, or Abramovic, I don't know how he pronounces it, has invested a reported $25 million into Open Web, formerly known as Spot.im. In the 2020 book, Putin's People, British journalist Catherine Belton alleges that Abramovich was the, quote, custodian of slush funds for Vladimir Putin and a, quote, cashier to the family of former Russian President Boris Yeltsin. That was reported by the Times of Israel. Several wealthy Russians, including open web investor Roman Abramovic, are currently suing Belton and the book's publisher HarperCollins for libel. In summary, Open Web and the Global Disinformation Index have been unable or unwilling to provide any examples of the Western Journal publishing, quote, election-related disinformation. Moreover, while Open Web's trusted indexes are misleading in their tying of WJ to Russian disinformation, it appears that Open Web itself has been funded by Vladimir Putin's alleged custodian of slush funds. Now, I want to just be clear with the audience watching. We do not believe, we have a picture here, we don't believe that Roman Abramovic is actually related to this character. You can put him up. Those are the Abramovich brothers from the Batman Arkham series. We don't think Abramovic is pictured here. We just want to be clear. If you're out there, you're surfing the web, you see this picture, we're 99% sure neither of these men is Roman Abramovic.
But it could be his kin of some sort.
Possible it's a skin based on some of his kin. We don't know that for sure. All we know, Russian billionaire backing the tech company that says, yeah, it uses an index that says, yeah, they may be a little bit close to Russian fake news. Let me tell you something, folks. We absolutely hate communism, post-communism. We hate the Soviet Union. We hope for capitalism in Russia. We hope for freedom and liberalization in Russia. We have absolutely, we have given them no quarter at all. I'll tell you who has given them more quarter is Joe Biden. Joe Biden has given the Russians more quarter than the Western Journal has. If we could supply their neighbors with complex, advanced weapon systems like President Trump did with the Ukraine, we would do it in a heartbeat. The Russians would hate it. We love it when the Russians get a fat lip. So, quickly, we've used almost all the time in this segment. Quickly, Grant, I want to ask you, is this just massive hypocrisy or idiocy?
I think it's got to be hypocrisy, but what I don't understand is why they couldn't come up with a better excuse as to why they were going to drop the Western Journal from their commenting platform. We all know that it's because the Western Journal is a conservative news site and they don't like conservative news. That's pretty clear that that's why it is. It really has nothing to do with the fact that they think it's funded by a Russian, because I don't think they care about Russians funding things. Obviously they don't, because a Russian oligarch funds them. But what they care about is the fact that we're a conservative news site and they don't want to be associated with us because that comes with bad press. It comes with them having to defend themselves
at
to
cocktail
people.
parties.
Right, exactly.
Oh, yeah, we don't do business with people like that.
And so they don't want to deal with that, and that's the reason. But what I don't understand is why you would say, oh, it's Russian disinformation when you are funded by a Russian. It seems like there should have been a better excuse.
Yeah, and they kind of skirted it. They didn't say the Western Journal produces Russian disinformation or is a front for Russian disinformation. They referenced this group, the Global Disinformation Index. They lump us in with two government-owned sites, Russian government-owned sites. Cameron, since you are a well-known Russian collaborator, we will skip you and we will move on. But we're going to move straight to your topic. Let's hear about what's happening with Cubans.
Well, first I have to say with the Cubans, I do have a conflict of interest at about 1963-ish. I do get my paycheck from the Russian Kremlin every other week. So going into that, I will say that here in the United States, we had an incident where 27 Cuban and Haitian refugees coming by raft from the Caribbean trying to get into the United States were stopped by the Coast Guard and were repatriated. They were returned back to their country. Except here's the big issue, though. Alexander Mayorkas put out a statement the other day saying that, hey, we're working with these countries right now. I think we have a tweet up for it. Slogan can kind of pull that up, but we're working with the local and federal partners to support these governments, and it's unsafe to come across the Florida Straits right now. And then he doubled down in another tweet saying that the time is never right to attempt migration by sea. To those who risk their lives doing so, the risk is clearly not worth taking. So if you take to the sea, you will not come to the United States. Now, if anyone, unless you've been maybe living under a rock or hanging out with Vladimir Putin lately, you know that there is a crisis at the border. We have a clip of this from Fox News' Bill Malugin from just a couple days ago of migrants from the Caribbean just walking across the border, Border Patrol opening up the gate, quite literally opening up the gate for these migrants to come into the country, be bussed in, and eventually processed. So maybe those 27 folks coming in by raft would have had an easier time coming across either the Rio Grande Valley or through the Tucson sector of Arizona, because that's what we're seeing right now.
Being welcomed onto a bus.
Right here, room for everybody, welfare benefits for everybody.
Yep. Everyone. So if you come by raft, if you are in Cuba and you are listening to this, you're not because you don't have internet. They shut it off for you. But if you wanted to come here by raft, can't do that. Want to come here by land? No problem. We'll let you in. We'll bus you in. Now, my first question for you guys is, should we be letting Cubans and people fleeing communism or any sort of thing coming in by raft, should we have let these 27 people in?
Of course, diplomatic asylum exists for a reason. It's being abused at the southern border right now because people can make almost any claim, and they know the things to say that would grant them asylum. Political asylum, not diplomatic, pardon me. They know the things to say. But asylum doesn't exist to simply allow people into your country without citizenship or paperwork. Asylum exists to provide a safe haven for people who need it under certain circumstances. Fleeing communist totalitarian dictatorships is one of those conditions. That's why political asylum exists. So taking to the sea or not, and by the way, who says taking to the sea anymore?
It sounds like
Mayorkas, he is of Cuban heritage too. So at some point, his folks took to the sea, presumably, and came over. It's absolutely ridiculous. Asylum laws exist to protect people like Cuban refugees, and they also exist to keep out people who are simply trying to leave one country because they can make more money and enjoy welfare benefits in another country.
Yeah, it sounds like, I think that the taking to the sea thing sounds like it was written in like a 1600s novel or something. But I think that actually...
and by the way, they're from Caribbean islands, so I don't think they just... Maybe they just took to the air and floated over somehow, but they most likely took to the sea as well, Mr.
Exactly.
Mayorkas.
And I think that just kind of shows his his inability to be sympathetic towards what these people are going through, because I think it's clearly a prepared statement that he's written up. He's said, all right, we're going to make a clear statement as to why we don't think that these Cubans should be allowed to enter the U.S. So he writes this big statement that's supposed to be impressive, taking to the sea. It's clearly not something that he is trying to understand or sympathize with them.
Churchillian.
It's like we're better than you and you can't come here. Meanwhile, we let other people come here who will vote for us.
That's exactly right.
And I think the issue here too is just the inconsistency with all of this. And we would not be even discussing this if we maintain an extremely strict immigration policy, which I don't necessarily agree with. We wouldn't even be having this sort of conversation. But the fact that he thinks it's okay to pick and choose what's okay and what's not okay is absolutely ridiculous. And also the fact that he's saying that if you come by sea, you're dealing with an incredibly dangerous journey. But we never talk about that with the border. We never talk about how dangerous it is coming from Central America or coming from Mexico to cross the border into the United States. They want to pretend that that isn't happening. And so if this is such a safety risk for them, why aren't they doing anything at the border? And they won't do it, and they'll keep ignoring it because it makes them look bad, makes them look like they're doing a bad job.
And it's not hard either. All you have to do is do what the Trump administration did and say, look, file all the asylum paperwork you want. You stay on the other side until we okay it. And that stopped it. And it not only stopped them coming, the proximate problem of them coming over our southern border, it stopped them from going on these god-awful journeys that they go on. As far as I'm aware, the Gulf of Mexico has never raped anybody. But there's an unbelievable amount of rape, abuse, human trafficking, child molestation going on the trip from Guatemala and Honduras and Mexico up to the southern border. If you actually cared about women and children, which the left pantomimes that they don't actually, we all know it. If you cared about them, you would be trying to stop this. And all it takes is saying, you stay on the other side until your asylum paperwork is approved. That stops it. Biden could stop it tomorrow, but he's not interested in it. It is about importing Democrat voters, nothing else. Cameron, did you have anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and the Remain in Mexico policy, the reason why the argument that they made for it ending was, the issues in Mexico with the camps that are there while people are waiting. Here's the thing with that. You can pressure Mexico. You can do that. That's one thing that you can do. But here's the issue with doing catch and release. The issue with catch and release is I think it's only something like 13% of people are actually returning to an immigration court for processing or a hearing.
Because why would you?
Exactly. Once you are in the United States, what's the incentive for you to come back to court? There is no incentive.
There is none.
To come back.
There absolutely is none.
Exactly. So this is bad policy. It's inconsistent policy. And they're doing all of this for public relations reasons. It's all about what the public sees. It has nothing to do with how they care for these migrants, how they care for the American people, or the Border Patrol officials. They do not care about any of that. This is about votes, about making sure that the Biden wins re-election, about making sure their admin looks more humane than the last one, making sure that Idina Menzel doesn't get all wrapped up in her saying, my kids said no more kids in cages. That kind of nonsense is still going on at the border, and they want to cover it up, even though it's getting worse under their administration, because they think that they are morally superior to the last one.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. It's a combination. The sense of moral superiority and the practical benefit of bringing in new Democrat voters. Thank you so much, Cameron. We appreciate it. Folks, that's going to do it for us today on WJ Live, powered by the Western Journal. Thank you for spending time with us. These stories and more. In fact, I think the story on Spot IM and the Russian oligarch, I don't think that's even live yet. That's about to be live. We're on the bleeding edge, Grant, the bleeding edge That's going to be live soon.
Yeah,
so,
we love to do that, do a little teaser for our upcoming content. That's always good.
Exactly. So hop over to westernjournal.com and see what's happening over there with journalism news you can trust. If you feel inclined, if you feel led to support us in more direct ways than simply visiting the site, you can go to westernjournal.com/join. That's westernjournal.com/join. There are ways there you can partner with us to help support the journalism that we do. This is not cheap. It is not free. We don't have a billionaire backing us like lots of other conservative organizations. It's just kind of us. We're a small family-owned
like Open
company.
Web, maybe.
We're
Be nice if you wanted
if you're a billionaire and you want to go to westernjournal.com/join and give us a couple $100 million, go for it. But if not, if you just feel like you can send $5 or something, thank you. We appreciate it. We appreciate your support. Doing what we do is a pleasure. It's not free. I wish it were. But it is a pleasure, and we feel called to do it. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to click the subscribe button. After you click that, a little bitty bell is going to come up. Click on that bell. That's going to make sure that we don't get shadow banned from you. When we go live, you're going to get a notification so you can join us on WJ Live. That's it for us, for Grant, for Cameron, for Kayla and Landon and all the rest of the crew here. Thank you for watching. We're going to catch you next week. Same time, same channel, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific on WJ Live. Thanks. Have a great weekend.
Welcome back to WJ Live. Today by two very special guests. We have...
I think I'm special. Thank you.
I think you're very special.
I appreciate that.
And from my friend, Andrew J. Shasha, reporter for the Western Journal, who has graced us many times in the past. Welcome back, Andrew. We've already done 50 episodes, 2 more, and will be equal to my age. I am flanked by 2 of our... That's a word I don't get to use very often. It's true. Flanked. And I'm joined today by assignment editor Joey Chester, as well as crack reporter Michael Austin.
Yes.
Yes. Not joining us today, my white polo, because apparently that memo doesn't go to everybody. I'm George Upper, editor-in-chief of the Western Journal, and this is Not Smoldering. I'm joined today by, what are you, distribution manager, Brian Chai, right? Manager of distribution operations.
The distributor of things.
Distributor, right. And with that, we must say sayonara. We said adieu on Friday. We said farewell on Monday. And today we're saying sayonara.
Oh, friend.
There's no particular reason why I picked that one, Brian.
Yeah.
It's just coincidence. We'll be here to bring you the truth every Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 5